Welcome back to the Full Force Combat podcast. I'm joined by the usual gang, Nathan, Alex. How are we doing, boys?
Doing good, mate. Yeah, doing well. We've been treated well this weekend. A decent card, flown under the radar. Well, heard some really good things, obviously. So watched it back, and this card's really performed this weekend. So we're in for a treat.
That's it. We had for every five sort of, this might be a banger Apex card, you do get one that tends to actually be quite good. And this was that one. I mean, especially those last few fights. We're going to talk about that Chris Duncan fight. That was a fantastic performance from both guys. Excited to talk about it.
Absolutely. Let's start there. The problem. Chris Duncan is a problem. He's still relatively young in his mixed martial arts career. And age is relatively on his side as well. However, he cannot continue to fight like he did on Saturday. As much as we was treated to a great fight, he can't continue to fight like that. He's got one performance of the night bonus, one fight of the night bonus. He's on a 3-fight tear. He's got to be looking towards the rankings now, hasn't it? Or I think they maybe should do similar to what they did or what they have been doing with Lerone Murphy. Now it's time for Chris to have a 5-round main event, and let's see if he can do the extra 2 rounds. Let's see how he is in the championship rounds, and then they can go from there, can't they? But yeah, what a treat that was on Saturday, boys. It was fantastic. There was blood. There was, and the best thing about it for me was because it was in the Apex. You heard how powerful those shots was, the elbows, the knees, they were crunching. It deserved a crowd, but I'm sort of glad that it didn't in a way, because we heard the effects of those shots, didn't we, Alex?
Yeah. It's like you say, you can headline an Apex main event when you're hearing shots like that, the knees coming off each other, the legs bouncing off the arms. Like, you can have that as a main event in the Apex, and it's entertaining, and it gives you a bit of a selling point towards the fight. But I was really impressed with Rebecca. Like, that first round, of recent memory, that's the best first round I've watched that's probably the best round I've watched in a very long time. I was glued to my phone watching it on Fight Pass, mate. And there was a few times he nearly got Chris Duncan out of there in that first round. He dropped him at one point. He didn't fully drop him. He kind of knocked him back a bit, and then he fell back. But still, I was worried for him. But Chris Duncan's been on a tear, and you can't take that away from him. I mean, he lost to Manuel Torres, but other than that, he's won every other fight he's had in the UFC since 2022. So I think going 1, 2, 3, 4, 6-1 so far. He's put together a great run. You throw him in the main event of an Apex card, you give him a top 15 guy, maybe. I'm not too sure who's in the rankings off the top of my head, but it's doable. They did it with Sean Strickland when he fought that Nurmagomedov or something, and even though Sean Strickland sparked him out, you can still make the case for it being a main event, and it's an entertaining fight, like that you said. I was a bit burnt out watching the second and third round because that first round was just so full on. I felt tired watching it. Props to them too. Interested to see what Chris Duncan does next. But that Rebecca, he's impressed me. Even though he's lost, he had a really good account of himself, and I was quite impressed by his performance. I'm not sure of his history. It's the first time I've seen him fight. Maybe if I just pull it up, he's a Polish guy, so it wouldn't surprise me if he fought on KSW or something like that.
He had a fantastic fight, but his last UFC fight was really good as well. I mean, these guys.
He's UFC. Yeah, he's fights in the UFC. I didn't even realise.
Yeah, just before we get Nathan's opinion on it, I think for Chris Duncan's situation now, I think, as I said, the 5-round main event would be ideal. He's a Vucenic win. He capitalised on a mistake, so he was smart enough to do that in that win. He proved that he can capitalise on mistakes. And then the win with Rebecca, he went to war and he proved that he can go to war, and it was non-stop. It wasn't just patterns of it and 30 seconds of flurries between each other. That was fucking 15 minutes of non-stop action. That Rebecca will be in plenty of more great fights down the line, won't he, Nathan?
Yeah, 100%. He's a great fighter, and it goes to show that, you know, the level that Chris Duncan's at now, because it's not the first fight, it's probably the second fight now where he's gone in and you've gone, he's probably not quite enough to beat this guy. I thought Vucenic was going to win that fight. Got proven wrong. Duncan dominated that completely. This was a lot more even, but again, he overcame that massive test in Rebecca, who's a fantastic fighter, and as you say, someone who's going to have a lot of great fights in the UFC still to come. I probably lean differently on what's next for Duncan in terms of the main event would probably be the right idea. Maybe it's one that in theory it would play out well, but just the lineup on paper is not ideal. I think for me, what I would love to see for Chris Duncan is a pay-per-view card. I'd love to see him get that big show in a big stadium, because as much as these fights are great in the Apex, I think we're past the point of remembering those. Like, I think it will get lost to the shuffle, it will get lost to time, and that's unfortunately the case for a lot of these fights. But if you have him on a pay-per-view card, let's say, you know, the big championship fight, Makhachev, Della Maddalena, you know, if that's probably a bit too short, but you know what I mean. Get him on one of them on a main card, and people will remember that, and they'll remember that fight. And I mean, I don't know who really is the guy. I was just sort of having a brief little scroll, and I landed on Ignacio Bahamondes, who's only lost recently came against Rafael Fiziev. He's not in the rankings, but he's pretty close to being in them, and that's a guy who's had some fantastic fights in the UFC and is someone that is an incredible finisher. So it's a different test for Chris Duncan in terms of fighting someone that is known to finish fights very quickly, and that will test his defensive skills and show if he really is ready for that top level.
Absolutely, I agree with that. That's a very good shout. There's still the lingering Terence McKenna possibility.
Of course. Imagine that.
But I think now, especially boys, maybe I do see Nathan's point of view with that, and I do kind of agree. So you could go with one or two. You've got good options with Chris Duncan. The UFC have got a very marketable star there as well. He's a great talker. He's Scottish. He's got a good past. He's got a good past story. He's got a good backstory. He's been through a lot. They could build him in Scotland, the next Braveheart. And if the UFC was to go back to Scotland, as it was due to at the start of COVID, but it got cancelled, he's the man that can headline that. He's the one that can build towards that over the next few years. As I said, he's still relatively got time on his side. He's 32 years of age, and he's only 16 fights into his career. They can work with that, can't they, boys? He is Chris Duncan is the problem. 2 bonuses as well in his last 3 fights. Come on, the boy.
Yeah, definitely, mate.
100%. And I mean,
on the flip side as well, boys, Nathan Fletcher, that's 2 defeats on the spin now. Who was on the card? He headlined the prelims, I think it was. Dangerous opponent. Not much known about him on this side of the globe. And that proved he was very, very fast, and he got Nathan out of there with, it seemed to be a theme all night, those vicious kicks to the ribs and those kicks to the liver. And as soon as Nathan felt that, he went down and it was game over. He didn't try and move onto his stomach so he could give up his back or anything like that. And then Nakamura just finished him on the ground. Alex, let's get your takeaways from it first, Mucker.
Yeah, well, as you know, the Full Force Combat boys were backing Nathan Fletcher all the way. Yeah, we was backing all the way. I was watching it, and I thought, no way, what a fluky win. But at the same time, it's MMA, and there is no such thing as a fluky win. You know, he's probably drilled that kick thousands of times in the past 8 weeks. But like, you just watch it and you're like, oh, come on. But like, it is what it is. It's a bit of a stinker for Nathan Fletcher, like, because obviously he's on a bit of a skid now. But so what? Like, a load of other guys started off with a bit of a rocky beginning in the UFC, and they've ended up going all the way to the top. Like, so you know, like, it is what it is. You just move on from it. Like, it's not like the kid's a pushover either. He was just as bigged up as Nathan going into this fight. So it's a learn, really, isn't it? But oh well, shit happens.
That's it, yeah. And Nakamura, it looks like a really exciting prospect, to be fair. And, you know, watching him in that fight, you could definitely see what he was about, and so props to him first and foremost, and definitely an exciting person to watch because that was sort of a prospect fight. With Fletcher now, it's tricky because he's had 2 fights against guys, if we're honest, in the sort of lower third of the ranking system in the UFC. If you were to sort of go collectively across the whole of the division, and it's he's probably got one more chance. I would like to hope at least before maybe that the 0-3 sort of dreaded, right? You're gonna have to look elsewhere if for now, and so hopefully it's now going to just be about rebuilding. It is going to be about getting a win, no matter how scrappy that comes, no matter how that comes. And sometimes, obviously we love to play matchmaker here and try and find those fights. I think if the fight for Nathan Fletcher, the next fight has just got to be one that hopefully he can win. And it's, and that's what's important now. It's about him and showcasing his skill set because we know it's there. And it's now a case of just time to display it in front of that UFC audience. And he has.
I don't want him to get.
Sorry, I might have misspoke.
He won
1 and 2.
Obviously. Yeah, sorry. He's 1 and 2. Yeah, I think he was very unlucky in the Loughran fight, in the Keelan Lochran fight. However, I don't want him to get cut because we're a fan of his. I think now, like you said, it's just got to be a fight that he can win. So it's just going to be something like a contender series winner. So someone that's starting from the beginning. He's got to go back to the beginning. So give him someone that's at the beginning themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just been obvious. I think the result should have gone his way in the last fight. However, I think he was just caught cold in this fight. So if he can bounce back, he will hopefully look at these 2 fights in a couple of years down the line, and he would have learned and taken a hell of a lot from them. Hopefully.
There we hope so. And I mean, to be fair, sorry, Alex.
Oh yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, for Nakamura as well. Like he's already had 1, 2, 3 wins in the UFC already and 1 loss. Like it's not like the guy was at the start of his UFC journey. He's already been a little bit up there, and obviously, even though Nathan should have got the nod in the Loughran fight, still like it's 2 people on 2 different points. Maybe Nakamura should have been looking at. I'm not too sure who's at the top of the band. Who's just outside the bantamweight rankings, but I would have thought that's where he would have been at. But I'm not saying it's not like it's a mismatch or anything because I reckon Nathan probably could have beat him like on another fight. It's MMA, anything can happen. Like, but yeah, he was a wrestler for Japan. He trains with American top team. He was already 10 and 1. Finishes all the way through his early career. Only really went to decisions in the UFC, and that was on his last 3 fights or something like that. So props to this Nakamura. He's definitely going to be one to watch for in the future. Who knows? Maybe if they move up in the rankings or they might meet again one day. Who knows?
That's it.
You never know. You never know. Another Brit that's in the UFC that's coming up this weekend is another Duncan, Chris Leroy Duncans this time, who is quite active in the UFC, to be fair. He signed at the end of 2022 when his opponent pulled out on New Year's Eve for the Cage Warriors middleweight championship. And then they announced him on the night there. He's since, in 2.5 years, had 7 fights. This will be his 7th fight in the UFC, boys. It's not bad going, is it? But there's not been no real noise made, and he's not had that breakout fight or anything yet. He's 4 and 2, which is good going. This weekend, he's got the chance of going 5 and 2 against someone who's, especially to the MMA community, is known worldwide in Mr. Erik Anders. Can he get the job done, boys? What do we reckon?
Yeah, I think he. Oh, yeah. I think he can. 100%. And just regarding with CLD's hype train a little bit as well. I think the Gregory Rodriguez fight was the UFC trying to do that because RoboCop was on a similar kind of trajectory because CLD had 2 finishes before that, so he was on his way. I know we got beaten by that Armand Petrusian or whatever, but so yes, he was building it up. The Gregory Rodriguez fight, and he'd lost that, so now it's just about building that back up again, building up that momentum. And I think Erik Anders would be very beatable for him. He finished Chris Weidman at the end of last year. He's not really fought since. He was just doing loads of grappling competitions before that, and kind of winning one, losing one in the UFC. So he's a very beatable guy, and I think if he's got a lot of hype behind him as well, this is a chance for Christian Leroy Duncan to take his hype away from him and start getting that momentum back.
Yeah, I think Erik Anders was meant to be, I think he's one of those guys came in years ago with some hype, and it just hasn't quite worked out that whole way for him. I know he was at light heavyweight, came down to middleweight. I think that's correct anyway. And so now I think unfortunately for either or, it's the reason we are able to get these cards most weeks. But a guy now can just go 4-2, 5-2 in the UFC, and you don't really notice it. And then until you actually look at it, I mean, we saw Martin Buday got released even though he was 7-1. Someone like Daniel Rodriguez, for example, I don't even know what his record is, but it's probably, you're probably looking at double figures in terms of fights. But there's guys that can just sort of drift onto cards and stay there. And so what Leroy Duncan has to do is the nature of it is he's got to show out now, and he's got to really deliver a finish so that people actually do pay attention to him. And unfortunately, he's on a card where maybe that's not going to be the place. The play almost has to be even bigger now, because he has to really get something to stand out on an Apex one. So it's a tough ask. I think he'll probably win the fight. If he loses, it's not the end of the world. The middleweight division isn't full of depth, so he'll stick around. He'll be there, but it does probably determine where he's going to be as a fighter. Will he be the guy that's just sort of hovering outside the rankings, or is he a serious contender?
Yeah.
And this fight will show a lot, and so it's up to him. I think to be honest, I would say the key thing, obviously, this is going to sound very obvious, but win the fight. And maybe that moment and that breakthrough moment will come on another card and another fight. But winning this one gives you the opportunity to do that in the next one. So I think it's just about getting the job done.
Yeah, big time.
Absolutely. I think if I was CLD this week during the build-up, and you're thinking, it's Erik Anders, he's 38, there's no excuses here at all. He needs it. It's not his breakout fight, but it'll push him towards a bigger fight in a better destination. Yeah, absolutely. Just while we're on the British and European guys, I just wanted to touch on the UFC Paris card coming up in 4 weeks' time. Have you seen how many British and European guys that are on there? Now, let's just... The Modestas Pigauskas Paul Craig fight, now that has got banger written all over it. Benoit Saint Denis and Mauricio Ruffy got announced in the last few days as well, which is another banger. We have Belaya OK as well versus Mason Jones, which I'm looking forward to seeing him on the card. Sean O'Bannon is on the card as well. Sam Patterson has made his way onto the card, and
wow, fucking hell.
Kennedy Freeman makes her debut as well. But there's some bangers on that card, aren't they, boys? We're in for a treat for that Paris card, really, on the sly, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that Saint Denis fight, to be honest. That's going to be a good one, especially in front of that crowd. Mason Jones is always good entertainment. Obviously, it's a fight night card, so you're going to have to deal with the Tybura fight and all that. But the Saint Denis, the Patterson's really, I'm actually excited to see Patterson, because he's someone that could really emerge, as one of those guys. And I say big on Mason Jones. And that's a test for Bukowski. It's a different sort of one, but again, and like we just said, it's one that really he should pass. But if he wants to be the best, he's got to.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And sorry, Alex, and that Ante Delija, or however you pronounce it, is on the card as well. And the PFL heavyweight, he's the one that's fighting Tybura, isn't he? The big unit who trains with
Tybura is the
yeah, just pulled up. He trains with Tom Aspinall. It's all over his vlogs and that. Yeah, man. Yeah, no way. What a card this is, by the way. Like
that's another great That is another great fight. The Paul Craig Bukowskis fight has got banger written all over it. Paul Craig needs a massive win, and this would be. It wouldn't be that massive win for him, but it's a very, very good win. That's what we'll call it. Brad Tavares is on the card as well. Yeah, I'm really excited for it because I'm heading out for it. So I just wanted to touch on it before.
Yeah, that adds a different element to it.
Yeah, and just to touch on the Modestas Bukowskis fight and Paul Craig, I think Modestas is going to finish him in the first round or early in the second round. Like, I think with Paul Craig, he's a great personality, but I think Modestas is gonna smash him, and I think with Paul Craig, I think it'd be great for like the WWE or something. Like he's not had the greatest run as of late. He's getting on a bit. He's a big personality. He's a big guy. Get him in the bloody WWE with Drew McIntyre tag team world champion. You know what I mean? Make it. I just think.
Do you not think he's still got something to offer in the UFC? He beat the current champion. You madman.
Yeah, and he beat Jamal Hill too. But other than that, like he's not really been up to much lately, and it's a shame to say that because I'm a fan of him and I like him and I want to see him win, but it's just not going his way at the minute. So I don't know. Maybe you look at other ventures, but I think you get him in the WWE, Drew McIntyre.
Time to learn how to bump, Paul Craig. That's what he's telling you. Time to, you and Chris Bungard form a tag team. Go do some British independent dates. Get yourself up there.
Yeah, I'm calling it now. That'd sell. That's money. Free money. Can have that one for free.